All right. So we're looking at the rise of the Axis powers. So we've talked about the prelude to war. Now we're going to deal with like sort of the nitty-gritty of how Hitler comes to power, how Jojo comes to power. We've talked a bit about Mussolini. We'll come back to him. We'll also talk a bit about the Spanish Civil War and Francisco Franco. So here we have Hitler as Chancellor of the Weimar Republic and will ultimately take control of all of Germany and become Der Führer, the leader of Nazi Germany. So let's talk a little bit about economic recovery. Obviously, Germany's trying to climb back and crawl its way back from World War I. All of the issues of the Versailles Treaty, not to mention the reparations payment of $6.6 billion, pound, dollar, however you want to shake that out. The president of the Weimar Republic, Paul von Hindenburg, does a pretty decent job of trying to bring Germany, sort of trying to pull them out of this economic crisis from 1923 to 27. There are a number of different complexities here. There is a Nazi Party, Labor Party movement. It's going to be led by Hitler during this era. There's a Communist Party movement. There's also an anarchist movement in Germany at this period of time. I mean, there's fighting in the streets of Berlin, fighting in the streets of Munich. There's legitimate armed battles that are being fought between the Nazis and the Communists, the Nazis and the Weimar, the Nazis and the military force for the Weimar, the Communists and the anarchists. Number of different sort of street battles ensue during this period of time. What really hurts the German economy, as it's not rebounding, but it's on the rise, because there's still a high rate of unemployment, is going to be the United States stock market crash in 29. You think about economic depressions, recessions in American history prior to the Great Depression. Most of those panics and depressions were caused by the collapse of European markets. This is one of the first times globally that the collapse of the American market impacts the European marketplace. A lot of money had been put into German business pre-World War I and then post-World War I for that build-up. Do keep in mind that most of the American aid programs in the post-World War I era went to Allied, Entente partners, not Central Power enemies from World War I. So a lot of like private investors are going to be part of this. One person in particular that we're going to talk about in relation to foreign investment in Germany and also support in Germany in this post-war era and in the pre-World War II era is going to be Henry Ford. But that all sort of we'll talk about that in the American entry into World War II. So Hindenburg remains president. Economic hardships create even more civil unrest and discontent. And Hitler uses this hatred to sort of fuel the rise of power and the rise of the Nazi Party. This is where Hitler becomes sort of popular. I don't know if I should have made note of this. You guys might want to make note of it here. They're called the Munich beer hall talks. This is where the Nazis went around getting popular support, and in these beer hall sort of protests, like legitimately people boozing it up, getting, Hitler saying, getting people riled up, saying, we're going to restore dignity, we're going to restore sense of nationalism. Like, they are legitimately a socialistic labor party. They want to use, government resources to provide jobs to rebuild Germany. That's Hitler's theory. Hitler's has another large-scale theory, too, that, there are forces that are against the German people, and those forces are among them. And that group are the German and European Jews, who he is sort of shoving blame to as being the cause of the Versailles Treaty, the cause of the desecration of the German state in the post-World War I era. So Hitler is arrested as a result of the Munich Beer Hall speeches, not due to the speech, but because one of the speeches turned into a gun battle in the streets. And he ends up becoming arrested and spends some time in jail, where he will publish his memoir, Mein Kampf, which we'll talk about here shortly. So the Nazi Party, it's the Socialist Labor Party in Germany. It's led by Hitler. It does feed off the hate, and it uses the measures of the Versailles Treaty as its fuel to the fire. And by 1933, it becomes the strongest political party in Germany. The Nazis promised jobs. They took the German economy into their own hands, not depending on America or foreign entities. They outlaw labor unions. They established national programs like the construction of the Autobahn, and then secretly, they're rearming the nation. They're building up a large shipping fleet. They're building up, they're retooling their submarine fleet. They are building a large-scale air force, the Luftwaffe. They're experimenting and building tanks that, interestingly enough, they had gotten that technology and those ideas from their enemy across Europe, the Soviets. And we'll talk a bit about how they rearm as we move forward. So just a couple of graphs here that I provided for you guys. Here we just see the elections. The Nazis come on the scene in the mid to late 20s, and we just see how their voter, the voter participation in the Nazi Party increases to where, Hitler becomes chancellor in 1933, and really will have control of the entire government by September of 1934. Here are a couple of just, some unemployment rates, and then this is votes for Hitler in the Weimar Republic from 24 to 33, and then this is your rate of unemployment. So again, Hitler's going to get popular support.
5.6% unemployment rate isn't really that high.
Exactly. That's why he's saying, like, look, I'm putting people to work. I'm restoring faith in Germany. I'm restoring the third, or creating what will become the Third Reich, and I'm putting food on the table. But it was a farce, because once he does come into control and the war is launched, then yeah, everybody's employed, but it's all going into the war effort, right? So people are starving. It's a false promise.
Yeah,
Right?
well, and if you think even today, like recently, unemployment rate's like 25%. They're the largest party in that country, the Golden Dawn, which is explicitly neo-Nazi.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. That's a good parallel to run toward the end of class, where we look at
some of the impact that the war has on European nations, especially like those who participated in the Marshall Plan and those who don't, and what where a lot of that. And I feel like I want to get into that right now, but I want to wait because I could talk a lot about that. I've got a lot of friends who are they're like first, second generation Greek immigrants, and they talk about how World War II ultimately led to large-scale immigration movement to America. And again, I don't want to go down that road right now. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So again, Hitler publishes Mein Kampf after his stint in jail over the Munich beer hall speeches. It's published in 1925, and really it's an autobiography, but it also outlines what Germany would do to regain greatness, what it would do to elude the answer of the Jewish question. So if you're looking for the framework of the ideas of the Holocaust, it is in Mein Kampf, where Hitler blames the Juden, the Jew, for the decline of the power of Nazi Germany and the loss of everything from finances to control. Yeah.
You've ever read Mein Kampf? It's very if when you were a kid and you knocked something over, it was him. Very possibly.
Yeah, and again, that was that really the Jewish people were used as a scapegoat in this post-war era. Since the Old Testament. Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany in January of '33. Immediately starts the secret buildup of the German army, weapons production, taking control of really all aspects of the country. And this is, again, you might want to make note here, as early as '33, Germany starts to move into Prussia, which had been landlocked as a result of the Versailles Treaty. And honestly, there wasn't a lot of pushback. Those were German-speaking people. They had roots that, ancestral roots to. She is not here. Thanks. Appreciate it. So the German Congressional Building, the Parliamentary Building, the Reichstag, not long after Hitler takes power, or not power, but becomes Chancellor in February, just a month later, the Reichstag will burn. This is probably one of the most debated topics of the pre-war era. It would go up there with, did Roosevelt know Pearl Harbor was going to happen? It was burnt by a Dutch communist, Rinus van der Lubbe. He's tried and executed. He admits to the burning of the Reichstag. But there's a larger question: did he act alone? Were the Nazis involved in any way, shape, or form? This is again one of the most hotly debated historical questions of this era of World War II, or pre-World War II. So the communists are punished. A lot of the communists are rounded up. Hitler declares a national emergency called the Enabling Act. And this really sort of brings about an end to the Weimar Republic, where Hitler is going to be able to rule by decree. So here we have Hitler's Mein Kampf. This is van der Lubbe, just 25 years old when he set the fire at the Reichstag building. There's a theory that another fire was set by Nazis undercover, but it's kind of hard to refute that he was part of the burning of the Reichstag because he admitted to it and was executed for the crime. He's a Dutch communist. Here's the burning of the Reichstag, February 27th, 1933. So the Night of the Long Knives. By 34, Hitler's power in Germany was almost a certainty. Von Hindenburg was elderly, not doing so well health-wise. He's not even in Germany by the end of his death. He actually passes away in Poland. So Hitler wants to bring the military under civilian control. He wants the Nazis to have control of the military. So in order to enact the plan, he has to erase boundaries instituted by the Versailles Treaty. And this is a good job. Some of you guys brought up in the discussion earlier that, there is a military aspect or a military motive for regaining control of the Rhineland, regaining control of the Sudetenland, Prussia, Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Poland. So at first, the army refused to be put under civilian control, i.e. Hitler and the Nazis. And the SA stormtroopers were led by Röhm, and they controlled the streets. So during the Night of the Long Knives, this is also known as Operation Hummingbird, from June 30th to July 2nd, 1934, Hitler and the Waffen-SS, led by Heinrich Himmler. It wasn't just Hitler that planned this, it's also his propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, and they launched this widespread attack, and they murder 85 to 200 members of the SA stormtroopers. Röhm was one of those that was killed in the Operation Hummingbird. So now what the stormtroopers had done, or at least their influence, no longer exists. That is now under control of Himmler and the Waffen-SS. We're also going to talk about the secret police, the Gestapo, and how they come into power here soon. And again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We'll talk a bit about them here later. So Himmler and Hitler, ultimately Hitler, takes control of the German army, and they move forward toward a military buildup. Himmler dies dies at the end of the war. Hindenburg dies on August 2nd, 1934. Hitler officially becomes Der Führer. So here we have Heinrich Himmler. This is a propaganda poster on the right for the Waffen-SS. These are Waffen-SS enlisted men, officers, and commanders. And then that is a flag for the Waffen-SS. This is the this is the group that's going to launch large-scale attacks to enforce the Nuremberg laws. So the Waffen-SS are really like the sort of armed guard that institute the Holocaust. Nuremberg laws. If you really want to find the beginning of the layout of where the Nuremberg laws came from, again, back to Mein Kampf, the idea of the Jews being the sort of the aggressors in the post-World War I desecration of Germany, and that the Jews were not the dominant race of the German people. All that's laid out in Mein Kampf. So on April 11th, 1933, non-Aryans were defined as anyone with Jewish parents or a single Jewish grandparent. Aryans were described as the master race, blonde hair, blue-eyed Caucasians with no biological validity nor racial term. Obviously, this is a bit ironic considering Hitler does not fit that description, nor do a lot of the other Germans that are involved with, the Third Reich. Yeah.
Where did Hitler get the term Aryan? Because like in linguistics, Indo-Aryan languages, for example, are languages of northern India. We also got the swastika from India. So like, why was he obsessed with that region? What was he working on? Why?
That really, I guess you'd have to go back to the migration patterns of the earliest like Germanic people to talk about like the ancestral. As far as the symbol is concerned, he comes up with the symbol while in jail.
There were people in India, very long ago, who were named Aryans who looked like Aryan people, so that's where we call that name.
Yeah. So the Germanic movement into the region, and then the Nazi symbol. He adopts that symbol. He adopted the symbol. I think the first time he got arrested, or he creates the symbol because he was arrested more than once, and then they start using the symbol on the armbands of party members. He adopted that in the 20s. That was adopted well before the 1930s. Yeah. And another layer of irony here, that was, a symbol of peace. And yeah.
And it was like the swastika thing with the little dots in it, and it was supposed to represent peace.
Yeah. And there's also a really popular design that is used in for ceiling, floor, and wall tile, and decorative tiles on the floor, decorative ceiling tiles, decorative wallpaper, and man, after World War II, they had to just get rid of. People had to remodel all types of businesses and.
Also,
I think there's
originally
much
the
more
allegiance Americans children with religion, they kind of their heart they did what kind of looks like some Nazis did. But then they used that after World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll actually have some footage of the Hitler Youth Program. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later too, and that was those were like the salutes that the children were doing with those pledges as well. So So back to the Nuremberg laws. So by September of 1935, the Nazi political rallies, Hitler introduces some anti-Semitic laws to sort of fix the Jewish problem, as he claimed. The first was a citizenship law, and the second was protection of German blood and German honor law. And what these series of laws ultimately became were what were known as the Nuremberg laws. So the Nuremberg laws included no Jews married German citizens, no Jews attended German schools, no Jews were allowed to fly the German flag, no Jews were allowed to vote, Jews would wear the Gold Star of David at all times, Jewish businesses and facilities run by Jewish citizens would be boycotted. So the list really goes on much longer for the anti-Semitic laws passed. This also leads to the first labor camps, concentration camps constructed as early as 1933. Goebbels launches a propaganda campaign to make the Jews appear to be rehabilitated at camps and to become Christianized, but in reality they're performing labor. And then as time moves forward, that's when the Holocaust begins. So this is the beginning of the laws that lead to the Holocaust. So here's Hitler and the proposal of the Nuremberg laws on the bottom left. And then over to the right, that is the Star of David that Jews were required to wear. So the Nazi rearmament, by 1936, Hitler announced a 4-year plan to rearm Germany, but what we already know is that the rearmament has been going on now for nearly 3 years. He pledges that by 1940, Germany would be fully prepared for war. Clearly those measures go against, or that plan goes against the measures of the Versailles Treaty. Special attention to tanks. This is the buildup of the Panzer units. Heinz Guderian, sort of the father of the Blitz. Rommel, one of the leading, Erwin Rommel, one of the leading Panzer commanders. Erich von Manstein becomes one of the key field marshals and leading generals that advises Hitler. They design new weaponry. These guys really become the brains of the Blitz. Modern Air Force, the Luftwaffe, created by World War I flying ace Hermann Goering. Pilots are trained, both young and old, gliders, dive bombers. We'll talk about the Stuka bomber later. The Hitler Youth Program also helps not only train infantry, but also armor, artillery, cavalry soldiers, and that's where the pilots start to be trained. New tactics are developed, notably the tactic of being outnumbered, that sort of mentality of being outnumbered. So a lot of pincer movements, but it's like lightning fast strikes. Tanks, planes move in, followed by infantry, and this blitzkrieg type of strike is going to be especially deadly in the first couple of years of the war. The Allies soon obviously catch up to the modern warfare. A lot of this has to do with America's Lend-Lease program, and then obviously America entering the war is going to improve upon that as well. Yeah, what's up?
Not only like a military events, they would take Aryan kids and they tried to get them into summer camps.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big thing to make sure that they were clinical and physical health and that remember. So a lot of it was trying to get teenagers, they would try to get more teenagers to go to college.
Yeah. Michelle brought up a really good point from the Hitler Youth Program. She's positively right about this. Essentially, there was a lot of different weird parts of the Hitler Youth Program, but one especially tragic and twisted part of the Hitler Youth Program was that a certain group of girls were chosen to get pregnant and have members of the master race. So they were essentially, sort of almost, selected as being the birth mothers of these future Aryan children. So on the top left, that is what a Nazi rally looked like in Nazi Germany. On the top right, that is a young Luftwaffe pilot being educated in the Hitler Youth Program. On the bottom left, these are tank drills that are being run by the Nazis in the pre-war era. Bottom in the center there, Hitler on the cover of Time magazine. We see that the arm band that I discussed before that the Nazis were wearing as early as the 1920s. And then on the bottom right there, those are members of the Hitler Youth.
There was also evidences found of the Hitler Youth being trained in Argentina and all across South America and Germany.
That does not surprise me. Yeah, and we're also going to see a lot of the post-war era, a lot of Nazis fleeing to South America.
That's because there was a lot of German
And-
immigrants living in the southern part of Brazil.
Exactly.
My parents and I have kind of been obsessed with this show called Hunting Hitler, trying to figure out if he faked his death in the bunker and actually escaped to South America.
Yeah, what is that? What channel is that on?
It's on history.
Cool, nice. All right, so we have the reoccupation of the Rhineland. So the Rhineland, again, that's western Germany. It's a mountainous region that the Rhine River flows through. It's obviously rich in resources. So the Versailles Treaty had turned the Rhineland into a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, under control of the French. Hitler decides in March of 36 to peacefully invade the Rhineland. This is a German-speaking territory with German ancestry. The French weren't too embroiled by this because of the scandals they were dealing with. Plus, it didn't put a ton of pressure on the French Maginot Line that we're going to talk about a bit later. The British were actually more reluctant about this invasion, and what's pretty wild is that Hitler plans the invasion over a weekend because there would be less British opposition politically from the invasion being launched on a Saturday. So the invasion was significant because now it's the first outright public violation of the Versailles Treaty. It's the first instance of real appeasement by the British and French leaders, and this is going to just continue on until the start of the war in 1939. So this is the peaceful German invasion of the Rhineland. This will answer Gavin's question. This is the Rhineland. Western Germany. Mountainous region, river flowing through the region. And then this is a image of Nazi rally in the Rhineland, and I'm going to double check. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this is in Frankfurt or if it's in Köln. It's one of the two major cities in the southern portion of the Rhineland. All right,